Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to our second Alabama Home Education Day event. This interview I was so excited about. Jonathan Bean is an author and illustrator of the book, This Is My Home, This Is My School. This is one of our favorite books in our house. It was very exciting to see a book that looked like us and looked like how we do school. So we were very excited to see that. So I'm excited to have him here today. He's going to talk to us a little about what it's like to be it's good to meet you. He's going to talk today about what it's like to be an author and what it's like, what his life was like. So where did you were homeschooled. Where did you homeschool?
Right. I was homeschooled K through 12. And I grew up in Eastern Pennsylvania. That's where I was homeschooled by my parents. And they were part of one of the first waves of homeschoolers in the 80s. So when we began homeschooling, there weren't a lot of homeschoolers around. By the time we finished up homeschooling, there were homeschoolers everywhere, and we were part of a very large co-op.
Oh, wow. So what did you start writing when you were still at home, or was that something that came later?
Started writing, well, there's the writing I did in elementary school, but it was really the art that led me into the writing and illustrating. So I was an illustrator first, and then it was actually in college when an editor who I had contacted asked if maybe I had thought of writing my own stories. And so that's when I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll try this out, write my own story and illustrate the story. And that's how it began. I hadn't planned to do the writing. I thought that I would simply illustrate other people's stories.
Oh, wow, that's neat. What got you to choose this topic? Now, I've seen you have a bunch of topics. You cover a lot of topics. You're not homeschool specific. Right. So what kind of things do you write about, and what led you to write this book?
Well, everything in one way or another is based on experiences I have. Thoughts, ideas come from life, some more specifically or more directly than others. And so the two books, Building Our House and This Is My Home, This Is My School, are based, roughly speaking, I'll talk a little bit about that, on my family's experience of building a house and homeschooling. And it was actually my publisher that came to me. Farrar, Straus and Giroux is the name of the publisher that I write and illustrate for. And they came to me and said, we don't see any homeschool books out there that have been published by picture books, that have been published by a large trade picture book or a publishing company. And so they said, would you consider doing that? My editor had Googled online and found out that I was homeschooled. I hadn't told anyone, not because I was trying not to tell people, it was just a professional relationship. So they found it out, realized there wasn't a book out there like this. And that's how the idea came about. It took a while for me to figure out how to turn it into the story, into a picture book, about 2 to 3 years. So that's how that project came about. The other one, Building Our House, was initiated by me. I worked from old photographs, and it's based on the experience of my parents building a timber frame house in Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up and where eventually all of my siblings were homeschooled. I have 3 sisters. So it was a family of 6, and all of us were homeschooled K through 12.
That's really neat. Are you going to, now you're going to read us your story today?
Yeah, I thought I would read the book to everyone. There's not a lot of text, so it's going to go by pretty quickly. And like any lightly fictionalized account, there are truths and kind of exaggerations. There are also things in the book that I put in because I thought this would be really cool to have. If I was going back and being homeschooled again, I would really love to have this thing in our homeschool. So it's truth, fiction, and a little bit of fantasy there too. So what I'm going to do is read through the book once, and then I'm going to go back and point some things out that are very true. I actually have a tracing of my mom's lesson plan here in the book, so I'll point that out. And then we'll discuss a little bit things we see in the book, things that I want to explain about the book. And then after that, there will be a time for question and answer. And Erin, I believe, you will be monitoring the feed, And if people have questions as I'm speaking, they can type them into Facebook or wherever they type them. I'm not sure where, but they can type in questions into the feed. You'll see them, and then you can pick out a few, and we'll talk about that at the end.
Yep, that's exactly what we'll do. So I'm going to step out for a minute and give him the full screen so that y'all can get the full effect of the book. And when he gets finished, I will be back to ask him your questions. So if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and post them as he's reading, and I will catch them and get them to him in just a little bit.
All right, and I'll do my best here. I'm going to try. I can see myself on the screen, but it's mirror image. So everything I do, I have to do in reverse. So I'll try to keep the book parallel to the screen as much as possible, and the image also as clear as possible so you can see it as I'm speaking.
All right, sounds good. Here we go.
That looks good. This is my home. This is my school. And page turning might be a little bit of a challenge, but I'll do my best. Here we open up, no story on this page. I'm going to pull back just a little bit. That looks good. A bulletin board in the family's house. We'll talk a little bit more about this at the end. And you can see the dedication here on the right-hand side. For my parents who built a house, then formed a school. And if you look very closely, you can see on the left-hand side, there are some children getting ready to board the school bus. But over on the right-hand side, there's the homeschool family getting ready for their school day. This is my home. And this is my school. There we go. What, confused? Okay, allow me to explain. See, this is my mom and my sisters. And then over here. And these are my classmates and my teacher. Follow us. This is our classroom. This is another one of our classrooms. And this. This too, we have a lot of classrooms. And you can see them here having a chemistry lesson. Up here, down here, they're doing canning. And up there, it's a music lesson at the piano. And down at the bottom, they're at the stream, having a biology class. This is our cafeteria. It's their kitchen and their dining table. Watch out, here comes the crabby cafeteria lady. And of course, in this story, in this school, the crabby cafeteria lady is actually the mom, the teacher. We have a big playground. I never built a treehouse exactly like this, but this is the sort of treehouse I would have built if I had my dream treehouse. But there's nowhere the school bully can't find you. And in comes the family dog. He's such a beast. Of course, we have a trusty school bus. It's always ready to take us to the library. Or, and here you can see them bumping in their little yellow school bus over a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Or on field trips. They're actually in a field on this trip. And the cow is looking very shocked at what's going on. This is our art room. This is the world. And now there's a spread with almost no pictures or almost no words on it at all, just pictures. You can see them on the upper left-hand side, coming back from their field trip and library trip with books and pages. And as you gradually read through all of these images, you see that there's a lot going on and a lot of mess being made. And finally, down at the right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner, it says, sometimes our teacher gets tired very easily. Oh no, she's calling for help. This is our substitute teacher. Can you guess who the substitute teacher might be? Looks pretty scary. It's our dad. It's time for shop class. Then the sub helps us with our homework. And of course, in this case, the homework is actual homework. Doing mowing, picking apples, chopping down corn stalks, getting squash from the garden. And then remember those school kids that we saw at the very beginning of the book? They're coming back from their school day in their yellow bus. And it says, when our school gets lots of visitors, our sub leads phys ed. And it shows them playing soccer. And down at the bottom, the students are all exhausted. And the text says, I guess sometimes the students get tired easily too. And there all the students and the dog collapsed in the grass. This is our show and tell and our dinner. There you can see the kids with all of their things that they've made, captured, done throughout the day. And look over there on the right-hand side, there's a rabbit about to get a leaf of spinach. This is our astronomy class and our English lesson, which of course is the bedtime story. Because this is my home, this is my school. The end. But there's one more spread here that has a lot of family photos on it. And it's going to be a little hard to see here on the screen, but I'm the boy right here. That's me. And you can see my sisters, my mom is up here. And in the book, she wears some kind of big round glasses. And I based those glasses on those glasses, which were pretty fashionable in the 80s and actually might be coming back right now into fashion. This is my sister, Emily. This is my sister, Andrea, and my sister, Susanna, is down here. Susanna, the youngest in the family. And my dad, right here. So what I'm going to do now is run back through the book and point out some things that are very true and some things that I kind of made up or exaggerated. So the first thing that's kind of interesting or fun about this spread is that when I was working on the book, I actually went back to my mom and asked if she had some old lesson plan pages that I could use for the book. And so she did. She had held on to some of them. And I took one of those lesson plan pages and more or less traced it into the book. I even traced her handwriting as best I could. So her actual lesson plan page and her handwriting, in a sense, shows up in the book. So I was really happy to be able to do that. So that's very factual there. Let's see, what else? On this page, you'll see a dog, chickens, and a rabbit. And we did have a white rabbit at one time that ran around semi-wild around the house, but we never had chickens. We had dogs. We had 4 dogs in the time that I spent growing up at my parents' place. Now this spread here I had a lot of fun with because this is the part of the book that I think of as a bit of fantasy. It does actually look physically a lot like, or architecturally a lot like the living room in my parents' house, the house that they built. But it was almost never this cluttered. And I want to say that my mom was a little worried when she saw how cluttered and messy looking this house was because she thought people might think that it was a reflection of her housekeeping or how neat we kept the place. In fact, the house was usually very neat. But to express the exuberance and the joy of learning and homeschooling, I wanted to create scenes that felt like they were very full of activity, very full of life. And so I often packed them full of objects. And in this case, one of the things that I really wished we had, well, there's a bird here, but there's also, if you look closely, there's a banana tree. And we never had a banana tree, but I would have loved to have a banana tree growing in my house. Who wouldn't? That would be a lot of fun. And we did, in fact, some of our school days were canning days, and then we would do limited subject matter, only the things we had to do, and we would spend the rest of the day canning. And I was very lucky in the house that I grew up and was homeschooled in to have a stream that flowed right nearby, and we spent a lot of time in that stream. And I must also, out of respect for my mom, say that the cafeteria lady here looks very grumpy, but my mom never looked like this, although everyone gets in frustrated moods every now and then. But this is not fact. She never held a mop, never chased us out of the kitchen. But this is the page that gets the biggest laugh from all the kids when I read the book in front of an audience. So I'm glad I kept it. The treehouse spread. And here, this yellow school bus, this was also based on fact. We did have a yellow vanagon that we drove around. And we had one very memorable trip to Canada in which this yellow vanagon, which huffed and heaved when it went up hills and made a kind of foul-smelling oil smell. Anyway, we were on this trip to Canada in this vanagon, and the starter kind of froze on it. And so we had to start the vanagon by coasting it along and popping the clutch. And it didn't last too long in the family, the poor thing. I'll show you the field trip page and the art lesson page. I don't ever actually recall doing this, but I really wished that we had one day gone out to a field as a co-op and done landscape drawing together. We did in my own family. I know my mom took us out, I can remember at least one time, to do drawing at the flower gardens outside the house. This is another bit of fantasy. I was thinking, in this setting, what would the substitute teacher be? And so I thought, oh, the dad would be the substitute teacher. In reality, my dad never was called by my mom to come home and rescue her like this. But he was the troubleshooter for many, many of our biology and arithmetic and algebra questions. Chemistry also, very sharp with chemistry, still very sharp with chemistry. In fact, if you go here to the page of the show and tell, which is something we often did. We sat down at the table in the evening and we would talk to my dad about what, see if I can get this straighter there, what we did in the day, what we made, what we saw. And we would also ask him, usually after dinner, certain math questions. You can see a calculator here lined up with a pencil and some sheets of paper. Because if we got stumped during the day, we knew that he could take a look at it, figure it out, and tell us what was going wrong in our math, or with our math. And nightly story time or reading was a ceremony, was something we did, a tradition in our family. And something that I still really value. Introduced us to many stories. We read the Bible, we read novels, and also during the day, many times before naps, my mom would read to us. But definitely before bed, we usually had some longer story going that we were reading through. And if you look very carefully, if any of you have a copy, you can go compare this end page spread or this back page spread to the spread that's similar in the front of the book and see what kinds of things changed from the beginning to the end. At the start, it's the lesson plan for Thursday. Now it's the lesson plan for Friday. So they're on to the next day already. And then we're back to the photos again of my family. So now, if there are any questions that people have, I hope that some of you have questions.
Yes, we've gotten a ton of questions, tons of compliments on your books. You've got a lot of people. I think your sister's here. I think
Yes,
I saw your sister commenting.
Family members might be tuning in, some relatives. Yeah. So hello, everyone. This isn't. Also, I should say that this came about pretty quickly, and it's really exciting. And hello to all the Alabama homeschoolers. And I hope there are also homeschoolers. As I said in the email, there are some very, very new homeschoolers right now who are having to learn all about this. So if you have any questions for me, I'm sure my mom, if she were commenting, could answer them better than I can. But I can try to share wisdom, what I think she would say.
Well, I have to say,
yeah, go ahead.
We've had a lot of defense of your mother, so definitely people who know you have said that she was never crabby, that they can remember, and definitely a very clean house. So for your mom, there has been much defense of her.
Confirmation of what I said.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so one of the big questions that was actually asked a few times is, what advice do you give to kids who maybe want to be an author or who want to be an illustrator, and this is the path that they want to take? What classes should they take? In homeschool, in college, who do they meet? What's your best advice?
Well, my number one advice is never stop drawing. I think that a lot of people simply, at some point in life, they kind of stop drawing. And a simple explanation of an artist is someone who simply has not stopped drawing. They keep making things no matter what. And so that's the number one thing. I would say draw, 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 fill sketchbook after sketchbook. But then I think especially for homeschoolers, it's important at some point to get some good, even academic drawing training in. And I was very fortunate in high school to have a classical academy called Barnstone Studios, which sadly is no longer there. But I went for classes there for 2 years of high school. I would go once or twice a week for drawing classes. And that's really where I learned a lot of the fundamental drawing techniques and principles that I still apply today. So I think a combination of two things. I should also mention that there were numerous homeschool parents who taught art classes, and that was very significant as well. So it was a combination of doing my own thing at home, making my own things all the time, but then also getting instruction from other homeschoolers who, in one instance, had studied art in college, homeschool moms, and then finally going outside the homeschool circle to get some other formal drawing instruction. So that's, yeah, I guess that would be my advice for homeschoolers, a combination of those things.
I love that. And when you said that, I can't think of the last time I drew something. So I never would have even thought of that. We're getting a lot of, they love your drawings, love the details in your drawings. I know I've read this book so many times with my son. I feel like I find something new every time. So somebody asked, they said they love your artistic style, that it's light and fun. Has that changed over the years? And do your pictures look different in different books, or do you pretty much draw the same through all of them?
The pictures do look different in different books, and usually that's because I'm trying to communicate something specific, a kind of mood, by the way I make the pictures. And as you've noticed, I'm sure, in This Is My Home, This Is My School, the drawing is much more scribbly than in any of my other books. And that's because I actually stood at my drawing desk and used a bamboo pen for the line work that I was carving myself. And I have, I'm glad that question came up, because I actually have some of the artwork here. If you look closely, this is the line drawing for one of the illustrations in the book. And I was so intent on getting a certain type of line for the book that you can see I cut out different parts of larger drawings that I liked and then pasted them all together. I sort of call it a Franken drawing. And when I had this, all the lines I liked for a particular illustration, then I photocopied this onto another sheet of paper, the line work. And of course, all the paste lines go away, and you only see the black lines. And then on this sheet of paper, I did the watercolor, the coloring for it. Up here, you can see just what it looks like, the photocopy without any coloring. So it's actually not an exaggeration or a simplification to say that I do color, well, it's sort of color by number, or like coloring pages for my art in a lot of cases.
This is
Yeah,
so
go
sort
ahead.
of along the same vein, sort of along this a very similar kind of question, but when you were at home and you were homeschooling, what do you think influenced you that this was a path you wanted to take? And aside from maybe just the classes and things, which is not a just, but aside from just the classes, what things did your mom do to really encourage you and make sure you followed your passion, or were able to?
Well, one of them, simply for both of my parents, was a lot of encouragement. I don't think that can be underestimated for a child learning to draw and learning to explore things visually, artistically. When I made things, they were always very complimentary, very encouraging. And so that really that's really a big deal. I think as time goes on, I realize just how important that was, that I received so much encouragement. And then also in very practical ways, I still have this huge and very sturdy portfolio that my mom made for when I was showing portfolios to colleges. When I was applying to colleges, I needed a portfolio to carry my artwork around in. And she went out and got all these really good materials and made this battleship of a portfolio that still is working wonderfully. And so it's those kinds of things that were incredibly encouraging and affirming. And then the third thing was that when I expressed interest in going to art school, they didn't discourage me. I think they were a little worried about money, but they saw that I was really passionate about it, and encouraged that rather than filling my head with doubts.
One of our younger kids asks, did you enjoy homeschooling?
Yes, I did enjoy homeschooling. One of the things that I liked about homeschooling was that I could do my book work, which my mom was very careful about, very intent about. She was trained went to college and trained as an elementary school teacher. And so our homeschool was quite structured. We had lesson plans and work we had to do every day. But one of the things that I liked was that if it was snowing that day, or if there was a project I was really into, or if the weather was turning nice and I wanted to be in the woodland, I could get up at 6 and start doing my book work and be done with it, sometimes even by 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. And then the rest of the day was more or less free to do with what I wanted, other than chores and other things that would go on around the house. But a lot of free time to explore and make things, which I loved, of course.
Somebody, also one of our younger kids, I think, asked, what was your favorite field trip?
Favorite field trip? There were lots of field trips. I'm just trying to think through which would have been my favorite. One stands out. We took a field trip to the Crayola factory. Which was about an hour. I forget the name of the town it's in now. Someone might know it in the comments section. But there's a Crayola factory in eastern Pennsylvania. And so we took a trip there, saw these huge bins of the Crayola marker capsules and crayons and how they were testing them. And so that one definitely stands out in my mind.
That would be a neat field trip. Okay, yeah. So somebody asked, do you like to doodle? Do you just doodle sometimes when you're...
Yeah, oh yeah.
Lots of doodling?
I think there's a connection between doodling. It's kind of like a continuum. Doodling maybe being on one end a little less thought out. But I don't see too much separation between doodling and what I do as an illustration. I think they're very closely connected.
Was it hard to write? Somebody asks, was it hard to write your first book? Is it hard to write books in general? Do the ideas flow pretty easily?
It can be hard to write. I think a lot of times the difficulty comes in, well, two places. First, the idea. Coming up with a good idea for a story is the tough part. When I'm given a text by another author through a publishing company, I'll be offered a piece of writing. A lot of decisions have already been made for me about what the story will be about, the subject matter. But when I'm thinking of my own story, it's pretty much wide open. And so narrowing it down to something can be hard. And then the other thing that can be difficult is finding what kind of writing form the story is suited for. So in this case, in This Is My Home, This Is My School, I came up with this idea that it would be, if you simply read the text, it would sound a lot like perhaps a day at a public school or a private school or a Christian school. But it's the images that tell you it's a homeschool. So once I had that idea that that's the way the images and the images and the words would work together, it took me only a couple hours to write the story. Other times, so it can take a while to get to that point, like, oh, this is how it has to be done. But then once I realize that, then things fall into place often.
Somebody was asking about the names of some of your other books. So when this is done,
sure.
We'll definitely put a link. You have a website we can put a link to
right.
In the comments so people can find all of his artwork, and we will post some links for ordering the book as well. So, but what are some of the names?
I pulled out some other books that I've written and illustrated. I mentioned this, Building Our House, another story based on my family's experience. And so in this book, you'll see a lot of construction. Let's see, there we go. Building Our House. And then I also brought out Big Snow. We're now outside of the winter season, mostly, except maybe for far north folks. But Big Snow is a story about a little boy who's waiting for the snow to start and for the snow to build up, and is very anxious about whether or not it's going to be a big snow. And that's something I still become anxious about. When there's a snowstorm, I'm always hoping for the highest total possible of snow. And so I get anxious looking at weather maps and figuring out if we're going to get a lot or a little bit of snow. Sadly, even here in Rhode Island this year, we got almost nothing, which is pretty extraordinary for this area of the country, I'm told. I'm a new Rhode Island resident, just moved here a few months ago with my wife and my cat.
Right.
The cat is around here. Yeah.
We don't get a whole lot of snow down here in Alabama. That's definitely not something
yeah.
we get a whole lot of. Okay, so somebody wanted to the other end. What was your least favorite field trip? Can you think of a least favorite field trip?
It's hard to think of a field trip that wasn't fun because it was always getting outside of the usual routine. I don't know that I could think of a field trip that I didn't like. I think I liked them all. Yeah.
I think that's my son too.
That's a disappointing answer. I could make something up that's just a field trip gone very, very bad, but I can't think of a bad one.
The next book. That's it. That's your next book.
The field
trip gone bad. Yeah. We would love to see more homeschool books. I know that that's something. I'm glad your publisher thought of that, because that's definitely something I think of. It's my son. We bought this book for my son. He has never been to public school. My girls were, and it was so exciting for him to get to see a book that looked like him in his house, even down to the crabby cafeteria lady. That was definitely his favorite here too.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. It's validating to hear that homeschoolers have found the book and are enjoying the book, identifying with it too. Yeah. Yes,
it's definitely been an encouragement in our house. And it sounds like many others. I'm reading the comments. When we get done with this, Jonathan, it's going to post into our Facebook group. And when it does, on the page, the Capital Day page, I hope you'll go back and read the comments. The comments will post with it, because there has been so many. We love this book. That's our favorite part of this book. Your pictures are amazing. So I want you to get to see.
I will. And thanks everyone for the comments. That's really great. And if there are other questions on there that we didn't get to, I'll try to take some time and answer them on the comments section.
That sounds great. That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I think I gave you a 2-day notice for this. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, you just reached out and you asked if someone could read the book, if you could have permission to do that. And I was thinking about doing some kind of online reading myself, because so many illustrators are doing that these days, with so many people staying home. And then I realized, and then there are also all these new homeschoolers that are homeschooling. So it kind of came together. You were the nudge that created this. So thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, we'll see y'all later. Be sure to ask questions in the comments and watch for those links. They'll be coming soon.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.